This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, I go to Parshas Rabbi as we prepare for Parshas Vayishlach. And in Parshas Vayishlach, in Perek Lamed Gimel, Pasuk Chaf, the Pasuk says, Vayatzev Sham Mizbeach. Yaakov Avinu made an altar. Vayikra Eloi, and he called him Kael, God, Elokei Yisrael, the God of Israel. Simply put, Yaakov Avinu was talking, and he called the Mizbeach Kael. What does it mean he called the Mizbeach Kael? So, Rashi explains that whenever anybody encounters a Mizbeach or invokes a Mizbeach, it should remind them of Hashem. But says the Gemara Masechta Megillah Daf Yud Ches, a different pshat. V'amar of Acha, Amar of Elazar, Minayin shekara HaKadosh Baruch Hu liYaakov Kael. How do we know that God called Jacob God? God said to Jacob, to Yaakov, you're God. How do we know that happened? Shenemar vayikra Eloi Kael Elokei Yisrael. So you say, well, no, that's not what it means. It means Yaakov called him Mizbeach God. Yaakov Kael. Because if you're going to think it means that Yaakov called him Mizbeach Kael, vayikra Eloi Yaakov mibailei. It should say Yaakov's name. Vayikra Eloi Yaakov. Elamai, Ela vayikra Eloi li Yaakov Kael. God called Yaakov God. Umi kare Kael. Who called him God? Elokei Yisrael. So you ready? You read the pasuk like this. Vayatzav Sham Mizbeach, Yaakov min Mizbeach. Vayikra Eloi, and God called Yaakov Kael. And who called him Kael? Elokei Yisrael. By the way, that's why it's very important to know Trup. That's why it's very important. There's a tipcha after the Kael. Vayikra Eloi Kael Elokei Yisrael. But if you read it, Vayikra Eloi Kael Elokei Yisrael. So first of all, Bevadei Machzir Noisei Mishnah Berurah says, because you changed the whole meaning of the pasuk. It's Vayikra Eloi Kael. He called him Kael, and who called him Kael? God. So Yaakov Avinu is being called God. And the question is, why now is Hashem calling Yaakov Avinu Kael? Why at this juncture in time? After Yaakov Avinu encounters Esav, after he wiggles out of the encounter with Esav, why all of a sudden does Rebbeinu Shalom call Yaakov Kael? Okay. Another amazing statement of Chazal. The Gemara says that Yaakov Avinu was wrestling with the angel, and Vayeavik Ishimai Ad Alois HaShachar. Yeah? To Amar Rabbi Shua ben Levi Melamed Shehelu Avak Meragloisam Ad Kisei HaKavod. The dust, they were fighting, they were clawing, they were bad. It was a whole match, and the dust was being kicked up until the Kisei HaKavod. How do I know? Ksiv Hacha Beheyavka Imai Uksiv Hasam Ve'anon Avak Raglav. It says regarding the Kisei HaKavod, a language of Avak, and here it says Beheyavka. From here we see that the dust of Yaakov Avinu was going up to the Kisei HaKavod. So first of all, what does this mean? That somehow they were wrestling and the dust went up to the Kisei HaKavod? What does that mean? Now, you could kick, I guarantee you could stand in the dustiest place in the world and kick it, and kick it, and kick it. How high is it going to go already? Go 100 feet tall. It's going to go up to the clouds. No. This is going up to the Kisei HaKavod, all the way to the Shiva Rakia. I mean, it's impossible. There's something called, there was a man by the name of Sir Isaac Newton, and he discovered gravity. Dust cannot go up, even up to the clouds. Certainly not to the Kisei HaKavod. What does it mean when it's to the Kisei HaKavod? And who cares about the dust? Why is it?
What happens to it? Does it fall back down again?
I don't know. I hope it doesn't hit anyone on the head. But what is the significance of this dust? Why is it called dust? And why is it going up to the Kisei HaKavod? And another question. You're wrestling. Bam, bim, bam, bang, right? And all of a sudden, the Malach says, Vayarki lo yachaloi. The Pasuk says, Vayarki lo yachaloi. Vayiga b'chaf yerechai. And he touches the hip socket. Vatika kaf yerech Yaakov ve'yavka imai. And he dislocates the hip socket. What is he after the hip socket for? I mean, everybody knows that when you're in a wrestling match, you don't go for the hip socket. Maybe you go the uppercut under the jaw, right? That's the killer. What's the hip socket? So what's he going for the hip socket for? Well, the Medrash Tanchuma, the old version of the Medrash Tanchuma says When the Malach saw that he couldn't prevail, he started thinking to himself, is this guy a man or is he an angel? He says, let me check. How do you check if someone's an angel? Well, angels don't have hip sockets. They don't have joints. They're just regal yeshara, raglim, regal. So he touched the hip socket just to say, who am I dealing with over here? Is this a man or is this an angel? That's what the Medrash says. He said, Shema za malach kamoisi, erem hu malach oiloi. Miyad noga ha-malach ve'arkavoisav shel Yaakov. So he touched the socket of Yaakov, lahavchinim yesh like kfitzas kaf, to see if he has a joint. Shari ein lamalach loy kaf, v'loy cholios, he doesn't have a socket, he doesn't have joints. L'fi shein lohem yeshiva. That's why malachim don't sit. They're oimdim, and asati chamachim ein oimdim ha'ila. So the malach felt Yaakov that he has kfitzas kaf. He says, he's an Adam.
Well, why couldn't he touch any other joint?
No, they don't have these joints, the joint of the leg. By the way, the Baal HaTurim alludes to this. Baal HaTurim says over there, he touched his hip socket, lirois im hu malach kamoisai im hayuloi kefatzim. And then he says another pshat. One of the reasons why Esav and the angel of Esav was jealous of Yaakov is because Yaakov brought the Bechira. Along with the Bechira comes the Avodah. So he wanted to hit him over there to passel him from the Avodah. Inami lepoislem and Avodah lefi shekana me Esav ha-Bechira shemen Avodah machem elam kvatzim.
Why? By making him a mum?
That's not a mum. Nobody sees that mum. Right?
You don't have to see it. And the gematria bekaf yurecha is the gematria lepoislem me kahuna. Okay. Then we come to the Sefer Seidel Adarach. Right? So according to this pshat, you could ask, he could have apostled him in many ways. There are many different mumim. There's a Sefer Seidel Adarach. Seidel Adarach was written by Rav Eilenberg, the author of the Be'er Sheva and Shas. And as you see over here, the print is rather quaint. It's an old print. The Seidel Adarach says, Kasav HaChacham HaMufla Mahara Ashkenazi, the author of the Masa Hashem. Avaloin is barb devei mahos kavanas shel asar hu lasis b'Yaakov. Right? Rashi says that this angel was a sar shel Esav. So what did he want with Yaakov? What was his problem? Im hayo yachaloi. U'ma hayo inyan negias hayarich. Why did he go after his hip socket? Avol yidmeh. It appears Kasher Machar Esav HaBechar Yaakov. When Esav sold the Bechar to Yaakov, V'nishbaloi Nasa Shtar B'neim. They made a document. Shekol Kinyan L'ksiva Oimed. Every Kinyan is written down. Kosh Ken Shvuah, certainly when there's an oath. Kfar Hoya Minog Sheha Roitz B'Shmir Shtar. If you want to guard a document, where do you hide it? Koishroi Al Yerechai. You tie it to the thigh. Where do you think Yaakov stored the document that he bought the Bechira? On his thigh. Yaakov wore on his thigh the document that he bought the Bechira. So the angel of Esav came against the Yerecha. He was trying to steal the star. L'chein gam Yaakov shaya tzarch l'shmir shtarai ratzon mishtar kinyan b'chayra hinei hayolai hashtarahu kasher al Yerechai v'sarei shel Esav haya ritzainai lakachas miyadai hashtar ulakach naga al Yerechai v'layachol lakachas hashtar miyadai. He tried to chap it, he couldn't get it. V'yazeh amar lei hamalach ki sarizon like him. And I'm a koloimar she not sachta oisi. You prevailed against Shakajar Shabi Yadcha with the star in your hand. So far we have three pshatim why he went after the thigh. Number one, he was checking if he was a malach. Number two, he wanted to passel him lavoida. Number three, he wanted the star b'chayra. Says Rabbeinu Bechaye, another pshat. Okay, Rabbi Glatstein, this is what we're going to focus on today. Even though Yaakov was a shalem, even though Yaakov was a tzaddik, and Yaakov was an ishtam, there's one thing he did that Lefi madrigasai haram, according to his lofty stature, was somewhat improper. And that is, he married 2 sisters. And that Avera was B'yarech. It's an Indian of Arayas. Yaakov Avinu, Lefi madrigasai, was held accountable. At least the Sari Shalesa felt that way. Says Rabbeinu B'chaye, Val Derech HaMedrash, Vayeyavek Yeshimai, Milashon Avak. Ki nismale avak ha'ish shahaya imai. The Sari Shalesav haya. V'davar yadua ki lulei ha'avain lo haya hefresh ben adam lamalach. If not for sin, there'd be no difference between man and angel. Aval yeh gadol we met. A man would be greater than angel. Like the Chazal say, Gedolim tzadikim yos malach hasharis. Therefore, the Malach wanted to demonstrate, I'm an angel, you're a man. How am I going to prove you're a man? You have a sin. So how did he find that he has a sin? Rak mitzad avoin shtei achoyos shenasa b'chayein. Because Yaakov married 2 sisters. Zehu vayiga b'chaf yerechoi. V'haya ha'oinesh b'makoim hachet. The punishment that he had a dislocated socket was in the place of the sin of marrying the 2 sisters.
2 sets sisters he married. Zilpah and Bilpah.
Well, Bilhah and Zilpah possibly were not from the same mother. So the Shla HaKadosh, this week is the week of the Shla HaKadosh. We're very into the Shla this week. The Shla HaKadosh adds that why did they kick up dust till the Kisei HaKavod? Well, we know as long as Esav is in the world, the Kisei HaKavod is not Shalem. But there's another meaning here. That the Samach Mem, the angel of Esav, had a certain kitrug against Yaakov, especially against Yaakov's Yarech, because of the sin that he married 2 sisters. Even though the Ramban is Marech, that in Eretz Yisrael, Yaakov was never married to 2 sisters, right? Because Rachel died before they got to Eretz Yisrael. But nevertheless, Yaakov Avinu was always in Eretz Yisrael. How's that? No, he wasn't. He was in Chutz La'aretz. He was by Lavan. The answer is the downstairs Yaakov was in Chutz La'aretz. The upstairs Yaakov was where? The Kisei HaKavod. We all know. Where is Yaakov upstairs? The image of Yaakov is Chakuk al Kisei HaKavod. Like the famous comment of Rav Shamshin Me'ash Shapoli, that when Yaakov Avinu had his dream, he saw the Kisei HaKavod. He says, Achein yesh Hashem b'makam hazeh. What's Achein? I knew the Ari was on the Kisei HaKavod. I knew the Kruv was on the Kisei HaKavod. I knew the Nesher is on the Kisei HaKavod. But he goes upstairs, V'anoichi lo yadati. I didn't know I was on the Kisei HaKavod. Anoichi stands for Ari, Kruv, Nesher, Yaakov. Anoichi lo yadati. I didn't know I was on the Kisei HaKavod. Right? The Gemara says in Chulin Daf Tzadi Alpha and Beis that the Demus of Adam is on the Kisei HaKavod, and that is the Yukno Shel Yaakov Avinu. And Yaakov didn't know that. That's why the Malachim Oilim v'Yardim boy up and down Yaakov Avinu. They said, "Hey, this guy downstairs looks awfully similar to the guy we saw in the Kisei HaKavod upstairs." And they say, "Hey, Yaakov, yeah, hey, how do you 2 places at one time?" So Yaakov Avinu, even though downstairs he could be in Chutz La'aretz, upstairs he's always by Kisei HaKavod. So the Malach of Esav said, "You married 2 sisters." What does it mean, avak? You ready for this? Avak is like avak retzicha, avak lashon hara, not the actual avera, the dust of the avera. The dust of the avera that Yaakov was over was the avak arayas. The avak arayas of marrying to 2 sisters. Why? Because he's on the Kisei HaKavod. That's what it means. The avak went up to the Kisei HaKavod, says the Shla HaKadosh. But I'm going to say another pshat. What does it mean the avak went up to the Kisei HaKavod? And ultimately Yaakov was punished, and this is why the Malach dislocated his hip socket, as Rabbeinu B'chaye says, the Oynesh was b'makam achet. Okay, Rabbi say? Now fasten your seatbelts, you're going to hear something amazing. Says the Torah. Says, if I were to ask you, how long did Yaakov limp for? So, well, he limped for a very long time. The guy knocked him in the hip socket, and he was limping. He needed some glucosamine. He needed an injection of platelet-rich cell. I don't know what they do, right? He cortisone shot. He was limping.
Didn't it go away the same day?
What?
The same day.
But Rabbi Yaakov says not true. He didn't limp for so long. Why? Because he only knocked him in the hip socket at what time? Alois HaShachar. Right? Like the Pasuk says, Vayevaser Yaakov levadoi, Vayeyavek Yishimoi ad Alois HaShachar. So they wrestled to Alois HaShachar, and Alois HaShachar says, Vayar ki lo yachaloi, and he socked him in the hip socket. But then the pasuk says, Vayishlach lo hashemesh, the sun shone, kasher avras penuel, v'utzei le'al yirecha, says Rashi. What does it mean by Vayishlach lo hashemesh? Says Rashi, Umedrish Agoda Vayizrach loy litzarchoi lerapoi says salosoi. Like we say, Shemesh tzedaka umarpe b'chnafea. And those hours that the sun set early when he slept by the Har HaBayis, it rose early now to heal him. Says the Heiligach Samsoiver Zechusa Yagen Aleinu. That means Yaakov Avinu only limped for 72 minutes. From Alois HaShachar until Neitz HaChama.
He ran the marathon.
He only limped for 72 minutes. From Alois until Neitz. He was socked at Alois HaShachar and he was healed at Neitz HaChama. 72 minutes. Interesting. Yaakov Avinu was only limping for 72 minutes. What's the significance that Yaakov Avinu was limping for 72 minutes? Says the Chassam Sofer, Yaakov Avinu married 2 sisters? What's wrong? Miman of Shachat should be mutter. Is he a Ben Noach or is he Yisrael? If he's a Ben Noach can marry 2 sisters. Ben Noach's allowed to marry 2 sisters. Elamai, he's a Jew. So if he's a Jew, then he was Megayer them, and Gershon is Gayer Kukata and Shanola Dami. Miman of Shach Yaakov can marry 2 sisters. What's the problem? If he's a guy can marry 2 sisters. If he's a Yid, then they're Yidden also. They became Yidden, and they're Gershon is Gayer and Shanola Dami. The only Isser of marrying 2 sisters is only if you take both Chumras. The Chumrah of being a Yid, and the Chumrah of being a guy. The Chumrah of being a Yid can't marry 2 sisters. The Chumrah being a guy, that we can't use the rule of Gershon as guy kikadim. No, Dami. 2 Chumras? When do you have to take 2 Chumras? You have to take 2 Chumras? Why do you have to take 2 Chumras? Miman of Shach. Either a Yid or a guy. There's one slot in the day where we give you 2 Chumras. Between Alois HaShachar and Neitz HaChama, it could be day and night. How's that? The Gemara says, Pa'amim, a person could say Shema 2 minutes apart, and you could be Yotzei Kriya Shema Shal Arvis and Shachris. You say Kriya Shema Shal Arvis right before Alois, and you say Kriya Shema Shal Shachris right after Alois, and you get, in that segment between Alois and Neitz, you just were Yotzei Kriya Shema Shal Shachris. You did Shal Arvis a minute before Alois, and Shal Shachris a minute after Alois. Then the Gemara says the same thing. Sometimes you could say Shema 2 seconds apart, and you could be Yotzei both. How? You say Kriya Shema Shal Arvis between Alois and Neitz, and Kriya Shema Shal Shachris after Neitz. So I have a kasha. Is between Alois and Neitz, is that Shachris or is it Arvis? Either Iman of Shach. Either it's day or it's night. No, it's both. You can have both Chumras. It could be Yom and it could be Laila. The period of time between Alois HaShach and Neitz HaChama is analogous to the status of Yaakov Avinu being both a Ben Noach and a Yisrael. That's why he only limped between Alois and Neitz. Before Alois is Vadei Laila. After Neitz is Vadei Yom. Before Alois is a guy. After Alois is a Yid. Between, you're Kacha. That's why Yaakov Avinu says Chassam Sofer only limped between Alois HaShachar and Neitz HaChama. Before, Iman of Shach. Either you're a Jew or a guy. Either it's day or night. No. Between Alois and Neitz, you're both. Now it happens to be the halacha l'maisa. You can't say Kriya Shema Shal Shachris and Arvis in between Alois and Neitz. That's Tarti the Sasri. You can only pick one. But conceptually, it could be one or the other. Let's read the words of the Chassam Sofer. Okay, now, the way I presented it, you have to get that introduction before you read it. It's hard to see it in the Chassam Sofer. But the Chassam Sofer feels, first of all, he doesn't say it explicitly, but it's clear that Yaakov Avinu only limped between Alois HaShachar and Neitz HaChama. That's a big chiddush. It's a good trivia. Ask at your table tonight. Does anybody know how long Yaakov limped for? Right? Only 72 minutes. Only 72 minutes. Says the Heilige Chassam Sofer. Ach omnam b'shenes boinoin b'chetoy shel Yaakov Avinu alav hashalom ba'achayos. Ein kan ovain hashachata miman of shach. Im nidaynoi k'ben noyach harei moter ba'achayos ve'in achayos l'goy. Makoshken shloim eim echad, certainly if they're not from the same mother. V'im nidaynoi ki Yisrael gamor Then when he married them, they were Nisgayer, and then V'kukatan Shenodami. Rakim Nata Alav Beis Chomrais, the Sasri Hadadi, Sheyachmer Ki Yisrael, you're going to be machmer like a Jew Shloi Lisa Shtei Achayis. Ukechumrei Ben Noyach, that it's not a Gerus, that it should be Kukatan Shenodami. This is the concept of the HaKadosh Baruch Hu is medaktik im tzadikim v'chorasara, because otherwise, what do you do wrong? Mimanav shach is okay. V'inei yadua, ki koidem matan Torah. Now, koidem matan Torah, the world was dark, right? V'haaretz hoisa soihu v'avoyu v'choshech. That's before the Torah is given. Zeh ma'asem shosham. Yihi or is the Torah. Ki HaTorah is richas hashemesh l'olam lenefesh haseichel. So nighttime refers to before Matan Torah. Daytime refers to after Matan Torah. So during the night, Yaakov can be married to two sisters, right? If you would wake up Yaakov in the nighttime and say, "What are you doing?" He says, "What's the problem? Before Matan Torah, I'm allowed to be married to two sisters." You wake him up in the middle of the day, "What are you doing?" After Matan Torah, I can be married to two sisters. It's only if you nem on both chumras of day and night that Yaakov can't be married to two sisters. Nidmu la'omer hashachar. The avos that were bnei Noach, but were mekayim the Torah, they're like alois hashachar. Shenoisin malav chumrei yoim v'chumrei laila. Like Chazal say in brachos, that during the day and the night, during alois hashachar, you could say Krishma Shachris and Arvis. V'yakein kol halayla. The whole night, the malach kilo yachaloi. Why couldn't the malach knock Yaakov in the hip socket the whole night? The night represents before Matan Torah. You can't get him before Matan Torah. There's no isser. During the daytime, he can't get him. Matan Torah mamish. Yaakov was nisrape.
So what's good about the daytime that he could be married to the two sisters?
Why? Because he's a yid. Daytime represents Matan Torah. Once you're a yid, so if he's makbid not to be married to two sisters, then they can have a gerus gemura.
It's like they're born again.
And if you're Megayer if Yaakov is a din as Yisrael Gamar, because he's Nesgayer Lagamri, they're also Nesgayer Lagamri, and then they're not related to each other, and they're not two Achayos. The only problem is the conceptual time of Amud HaShachar Til Neitz, which is the Chumros of Matan Torah and Koidem Matan Torah. So that's why during the daytime, the Malach couldn't get him. During the nighttime, the Malach couldn't get him. It's only Alois HaShachar Tenates. It comes out very nice then, and this is pointed out in the Sefer Shvilei Pinchas. That is why Yaakov Avinu was the one who's Masake in Kriya Shema. Why? Because Kriya Shema, the Zman of Kriya Shema, and both of them, the Zman could be between Alois HaShachar and Eitz. That's the Zman that Yaakov Avinu is Masakein, this Chisaron of being married to two Achayos, which is represented by the Zman of Alois HaShachar Tanei Tzachama. And that is why Yaakov Avinu was married to, that's why Yaakov Avinu was Masakein Kriya Shema to rectify this infraction. That's why the Medrash Rabbah says, number 15, B'shah Yaakov Avinu niftar min ha'olam, kara l'shnei masar banav. Yaakov called to his 12 sons when he was about to die. Amar lahen Shimu, Kel Yisrael Sheba Shamayim Avichem. God in heaven. Shema Yesh B'vavchem Achalekas HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Are you all b'shalom with God? So they said, Shema Yisrael. Just like in your heart, you're b'shalom with God. Hashem Elokeinu. Hashem's in our heart. Hashem Echad. So Yaakov said what? Baruch Shem. That's well known. But then the Medrash continues, Rab Brechia, Rab Chelba, B'Shem, Rab Shmuel, Hadahu, She Yisrael, Mashkimim, U'Ma'arivim, B'Chol Yom. That is why Klal Yisrael says every day, Shema Yisrael! When you say Shema Yisrael, who you know you're talking to? Yaakov Avinu. Listen up, Yaakov. But he's far away. He can hear you now. He can hear you in the Maras Machpelah. Even in Hillcrest, when you say Shema Yisrael, you could call out all the way to the Maras Machpelah. There's a direct connection. Why was Yaakov the one who was Masakin Kriya Shema? Kriya Shema is the Kabbalas Malchus Shemayim. And that is said primarily Ben Alois HaShachar Neitz HaChama. And that is a time where the rest of the time Yaakov is Sholei Mamish. The Malachim cannot have any dominion over. During the Yoim, no dominion. Vayishlach Lo Hashemesh. During the Laila, no dominion. It's only Ben Alois and Neitz HaChama. So I want to tell you a big chiddush. Another chiddush from Rav Shamshin Me'ashtapoli. Yaakov married 2 sisters. What's wrong with marrying 2 sisters? You ready for this? The Navi Yechezkel says about the Kisei HaKavod that the design of the Kisei HaKavod, look at number 17, Chayvrois Isha El Achaisa. The design of the Kisei HaKavod is 2 sisters. Only God, who sits on the Kisei HaKavod, could make use of Isha El Achaisa. A human being, a mortal, cannot make use of Isha El Achaisa. So I want to suggest, says the Reb Shamshon Shapoli, the reason why you can't marry 2 sisters, Mibnei Shemishtamesh B'Sharvitoi Shel Melech. You're using the scepter of the king. You're using the throne of the king. The throne of the king is Isha L'Chaisa. That is why when the angel of Esav came to hit Yaakov in the hip socket, where did the dust go up? At the Kisei HaKavod. What are we invoking in the Kisei HaKavod? Because the Avera that we're getting Yaakov for is an Avera of a chisaron in appreciating the Kisei HaKavod. Therefore the dust went up to the Kisei HaKavod. Because the Kisei HaKavod is Chayvrois Isha L'Chaisa, is using Sharvito Shel Melech. But ultimately Yaakov is not indicted for marrying 2 sisters. You know why? Says Rav Shamshon Sapoli. Because once the Gemara says that when Yaakov Avinu is called Kale, he's also a Kale. He can also make use of Isha L'Chaisa. So ultimately Yaakov Avinu could also make use of the Kisei HaKavod. So I want to say like this. Esav is coming with 1 kitrug. The kitrug is Yaakov, you're marrying 2 sisters. Where is he getting him? He's getting him a Kaf Yerechai. Like Rabbeinu Bachai says, B'makam achet, that's the oynesh. What time of the day could he get him? Not during the Laila, not during the Yom, only 72 minutes. And he knocks him out. And where does the dust go? Kisei HaKavod. Why Kisei HaKavod? Because, first of all, like the Shla says, because Yaakov's always in Eretz Yisrael. He's always on the Kisei HaKavod. So he can't marry the 2 sisters. The Ramban said, well, he was Chutz La'aretz. No, downstairs is Chutz La'aretz, upstairs on Kisei HaKavod. And we're adding the Avera of marrying 2 sisters and Avera of improper Me'ilah on the Kisei HaKavod. Only the Kisei HaKavod is Isha L'Chaisa. But then, after Yaakov Avinu saves himself from Esav, the day comes, Rebbeinu Shalom says, I'm going to protect you from such a kitrug again. How do I protect you? What's the first thing Hashem says? Vayikra lo Kale, you're also called Kale. Once you're called Kale, no kitrug against you for marrying the 2 sisters, and you could walk home, no limp, no glucosamine, no cortisone shots, no arthritis, and you're safe from the Sarai Shal Esa Rabbi Agun Shabbos.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.